Thank you. From the 6th District, Mr. Sartori.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you realize, I mean, you promote lacrosse, but I've been all over the world and I've heard what people say about lacrosse, and I think it kind of sells itself, and it doesn't really need a department there to let people know. People realize the beauty of the river, they realize the beauty of the bluffs, they realize the beauty of all the recreation trails and the parks.
Is there a question?
There
for
is,
the speaker?
well, I was going to ask, I was reading his report here about Green Bay and Appleton, Rochester, Brookfield, Oshkosh, talking about, well, we have to compete with these people. But I'm wondering, I really think lacrosse does sell itself, anybody who ever comes here. And what I was going to ask, I guess, I asked Dave, is when we had an extra 2% room tax helping pay for the university stadium, what is happening with that extra 2% now?
Actually, it was 1%, Mr. Sartori, and a couple of years ago you passed legislation dividing that between the Lacrosse Center and the Lacrosse Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, and that's where we get the extra funds to do extra work with groups like Oktoberfest. That's where we're taking that money from to help Oktoberfest and other events. I would also tell you that I just sent a staff person to Cedar Falls, Iowa for a sports show. She was down there for 4 days. She had more people than you can imagine come up to her and say, oh, lacrosse, we know lacrosse, but we haven't been there in years. We forgot about going there. We passed out over 400 visitor guides, collected 600 email addresses. People just don't come to a place just because they think of it. You need to go out and tell them about it.
Okay, thank you.
From the 1st District, Andrea Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Clements, my conversation with you, I had asked quite a few questions as to the dollar amount that was taken in room tax. I believe it was $1.4 million.
Correct.
And I know you allocated. How much was allocated for Oktoberfest for this year?
$9,000.
$9,000.
Approximately.
Yeah. And with the Board of Public Works just making, I guess, their approval, which I wasn't sure of, that I heard it was $20,000 in fees, that really hurts Oktoberfest. As you know, and everyone knows, Oktoberfest does a lot for the community, a lot for nonprofits and so on. I think we need to do better supporting Oktoberfest.
And I can't argue with you there, except I will say I have 2 comments to make. One, who determined all these fees? You know, and so I guess we talked about that, you and I.
Right.
And the second is basically the fees now that you're charging, and then we get the room tax. So you're balancing the city budget on the back of the room tax by taking those dollars. That would be my comment. We will work with Oktoberfest. I told you that, and we will continue to work with Oktoberfest. And I'm the president of the parade marshals of Oktoberfest, okay? So I wear 2 hats standing up here right now.
Right, and I appreciate all the work you have done with the Visitor and Convention Bureau. But as Councilmember Sartori stated, you know, Oktoberfest is our biggest, you know, parade.
Oktoberfest, state track meet, and don't forget Organic Farming Conference that comes in February when no hotels are occupied. We bring 3,500 people from about 28 states and 3 foreign countries for 4 days. Organic. Don't forget about that conference, because I guarantee you it's as important as the other 2, State Track and Oktoberfest.
What I'm talking about,
I know,
the number of people that come just for Oktoberfest. They come from all over the country.
So do the other events.
Yeah, and I, you know, I guess if we can, let's take a look at, you know, how we can help Oktoberfest out. And I think we need to probably work with the Board of Public Works, seeing, you know, what can be done to change these fees. They have to remember it's part of the community, it's part of what we're supposed to be doing.
And there's a lot of nonprofits that benefit from volunteering during Oktoberfest.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
From the 6th District, Mr. Sidori. President Connor?
Thank you. Mr. Clemens, you mentioned that you are both on, what, the chair of Festmasters?
No, I'm the I'm president
Parade
of the
marshal.
parade shows. In fact, we had our parade
Okay.
marshal meeting earlier tonight.
Okay, and you also represent the city through the Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Correct.
So my question to you, if you can answer it, is are the Oktoberfest books available to the city if they're financial statements?
I can't answer that question. I don't, I wouldn't know. I don't know
Perhaps
if they've
Ms.
showed the
Severson
city or not. I've been told some numbers. I don't have access to their numbers, so it's not, from my perspective, I think that's a decision they have to make internally.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if Ms. Severson would want to answer that.
Miss,
I can't hear you.
would you
She
like to
said
step
the
forward?
numbers have been made available that you've requested in the past, was her comment.
Thank Thank you.
Seeing no more speakers, thank you. Can I get a motion to close, please? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? From the 6th, Mr. Satori.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was a printing error here, which I apologize for. It's supposed to say now, therefore it being resolved by the Common Council of the City of La Crosse approves using 1% of the 6% or the room tax collected during the 2 weeks period during Oktoberfest festival to offset the cost. It was supposed to be, it's a kind of a win-win situation. You have people coming here from all over the world, at least all over the United States, coming to our Oktoberfest. And they help pay for it. You know, after we have a parade, there's trash everywhere. Instead of the taxpayers of the city of La Crosse paying for it, actually, a lot of the people who are staying at the hotel are helping pay for it. That's really the whole idea of a room tax, was to help offset the price, help pay for the police and the roads and the street cleanup. You know, we got to look at how to make things better for this community, and what better way than to actually, in a sense, tax the people who come here. So by using that room tax, it would be, I think, a lot better than just being given to use it for advertising of the city of La Crosse. I mean, I just got back from the Caribbean. There was a guy on the boat who was up on stage, and he talked about La Crosse, Wisconsin, coming every year to Oktoberfest. And that was his bonding time with his family. They all came here. They were all in the parade. He had Frank Fritz of American Pickers, international TV show on the History Channel. He talked about Oktoberfest. That's free advertising for this community, and it brings people here. And as I say, if anyone ever comes to this community, they see La Crosse, they fall in love with it. Thank you.
From the 1st District, Andrea Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Delagrave, did you put any numbers together about how much that would be if it was the 1% of room tax funds for that 2-week period? You know, we know what, I guess what was spent for hotels and so on. I guess, can you give me a dollar amount of what we're talking about?
Mr.
Or
Deputy.
not?
Well, I don't know that I can get you a specific dollar amount. Based on the way the resolution is currently written, it's asking for a specific 2-week period. The Hotel Motel Association reports their room tax to the city on a monthly basis. So I could make some assumptions and divide the total room tax collected, and if it is, and Councilmember Satori just clarified what the intent was, because the resolution wasn't clear, but it is 1% of the 6%. If you were just to take that and divide that down by the 52 weeks, then multiply it by 2 weeks in
Well,
general.
you'd have to do the biggest month, which is Oktoberfest, probably, for hotels.
Well, and that could be and it couldn't be. I don't want to make any assumptions, so I just did a simple calculation of dividing it down by 52 weeks and multiplying it by the 2 weeks. Not necessarily the two biggest weeks, but 2 weeks, and we'll get you a ballpark number somewhere around 39 or 40,000.
Say
based
that
on the
again?
current. It would get you a number of somewhere between 39, 40,000, depending on the actual collections for that period.
Is there any number you can come up with for accuracy for Thursday, you know?
Well, again, the Hotel Motel Association reports their numbers to me on a monthly basis, so I can't break that down on a daily basis. I can't break it down what happened this week or this
No,
day.
I'm not, I'm talking about Oktoberfest. I'm not talking about what happened in January. You know,
No, I mean, I get the whole month of September, I get the whole month of October.
okay.
I don't know how else to, I can't break that down. I don't know how I would break that down. I'd have to make some assumptions, just as I did just dividing it by 52 and then multiplying it by 2 weeks.
And, okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
From the 7th, Mr. Sheriff.
Yes, if my memory serves me correctly from just a wee bit ago, the parade fees that are collected and associated with Oktoberfest is around 20,000. Is that correct?
You know, I don't believe that's for, yeah, I'm not sure who you're directing that question to, but I believe that's a question for Oktoberfest, not city staff. We don't get those numbers.
All right. May I ask the lady from Oktoberfest that
We
question,
need a
even though
motion
we're
to go
not?
back into public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
All those in
I
favor say
appreciate
aye.
that.
Opposed? Mrs. Severson?
Hi, I'm Tina Severson, the
Thank
lady
you.
from Oktoberfest. We currently pay 10,000 for the police, and then we have an estimate of between 11 and 14,000 for the public works in 2013.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did that answer your question?
That did answer my question. It's a little bit more than the 20,000, the 11 to 14. Worst case scenario, we're looking at 24,000 there. If Mr. Delagrave's numbers of approximately...
Can I, before we do that, can I get a motion to close, please? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Thank you. Please
And
continue.
I appreciate that. If Mr. Delagrave's approximation of about $40,000 is correct, this in essence becomes a grant to Oktoberfest. I would think that we could help Oktoberfest out much better by waiving or reducing these fees rather than extending this 1% of the 6% for a 2-week period, which would require different accounting measures for us to be able to even determine what those actual numbers are, which becomes even more convoluted. I think there's better ways to help out Oktoberfest than this resolution. Thank you.
Seeing no other speakers, from the first district for the second time, Andrea Richmond.
I got a question maybe for Mr. Hexum on those fees that were, I guess, mentioned here. That was before the Board of Public Works as an approval of this $11,000 for fees for 2013. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, that is correct. That was before the Board of Public Works a number of months ago at this point. And those are the result of a analysis or an overview of the costs incurred by Public Works for the past 3, 4, 5, 6 years. A number of years were looked at, and the total expenses put together, and this represents basically just not all of the costs that are incurred, but the cleanup for garbage and some other things that Public Works and the Street Department primarily do after the Maple Leaf Parade in setup for the Maple Leaf Parade, for instance, with barricades, sweeping of the streets, picking up garbage, disposal of garbage, and Oktoberfest was able to reduce some of those costs by volunteering or accepting the responsibility to take care of some of the cleanup of the street and the garbage and the lake. So these were before Board of Public Works, I believe back in like November, December or so, that time frame.
So are those overtime costs then? Is that what that'd be, or?
No, it's not. It's some overtime cost. It's the overtime costs without added benefits and the like. It's the cost of disposal of the garbage, the tonnage fees. It's the cost of sweeping streets. So it's a combination of some of the expenses incurred by Public Works and the Street Department.
I would think as a goodwill gesture, when we have 19 plus, or maybe it's 21 million in surplus, we could use some of that money to help out the fees for Oktoberfest. And I know Board of Public Works approved it, but it could come back as a resolution for the city council to waive those fees and use surplus money for that.
And are you directing that question to me?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I mean,
You set the policy, we follow the policy.
that's correct. Thank you very much.
From the 6th District, Mr. Satori.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We got to really remember there are actually 3 parades for Oktoberfest. I've been given a number as much as $185,000 when it really comes down to the cost of Oktoberfest in the city. Then we're talking about our taxpayers paying for this. Oktoberfest brings in a lot of money to the restaurants and the bars and the hotels and the shops and things like that. But wouldn't it be better for the people who come here to pay the tax as a room tax than the people of the city of La Crosse picking up the tab? Because it's always going to be going up. Our fees for the city, it's always going to be going up. It's not going to be going down, even though I think some of those fees should be given to Oktoberfest only because of what they're doing for this community. I mean, they are putting La Crosse on the map. And we're over 50 years now of Oktoberfest, so it's something that La Crosse is a part of now. It's the same as used to be G. Heidelman Brewing Company and Train Company. It's part of La Crosse. Thank you.
From the 17th, Mr. Schwantz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to remind my fellow council members that this resolution it was amended to essentially not say we would or wouldn't do anything in terms of helping Oktoberfest, but because we're in the middle of our budget year and we're in the middle the Convention and Visitors Bureau is in the middle of their, well, not in the middle, but they're living inside of a budget that, as I believe it, Ms. Cotter, this was referred to the upcoming budget deliberations, was it not?
The recommendation from FMP was to refer it to the operating budget discussions.
Thank you.
And I still need a motion. We do not have that at this point. We have a motion to move the committee report, which is to refer this to budget deliberations. Thank you. On the board, please. Oh. For the 3rd time. And are there any objections? From the 1st District, Andrea Richmond.
My question is, if this is referred to the operating budget, it doesn't help 2013. Is that what the intent is? Not to do anything for 2013? You're working on 2014 is what you're talking about, the operating budget. So it does nothing for 2013 unless we bring something back. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further discussions, on the board, please. And that passes 13-3 with districts 1, 3, and 6 voting no. And that's all I have for public hearings.
Welcome to the Judiciary Administration portion. Yes.
There's been a request for a very brief recess because we've been meeting since 6:30.
Okay, what's the motion?
There's been a request for a very brief recess, 3 minutes.
Okay.
No chatting, just
Okay,
bathroom
is there a
break.
second to that? Second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. 3 minutes. Okay, the first, I have 6 public hearings. The first one I'm going to take up should be a quick one. I have 13-0164, which is an ordinance to amend subsection 15.02, parent B of the Code of Ordinance, City of La Crosse, transferring certain property from the light industrial district to the traditional neighborhood district dash Pacific, allowing for apartments and/or partial office space at 2350 South Avenue. The recommendation from J&A is to be adopted, and I have Mr. Hingle here that's going to answer questions if there are any. I see no questions. The J&A motion is, okay, is to approve. Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. Mr. Olson, is there a reason? Oh, okay. So, Mr. Hingle, that will be recommended to Thursday night for approval. Thank you for coming. Okay, next, I think we'll have another quick one here. It's 13-0136. And that is a resolution approving the Powell Hood Hamilton / Gunderson Lutheran Medical Center Joint Neighborhood Campus Development Plan. That is to be approved as amended, correct? Okay, so the motion is to approve as amended. And we have a holdout from the 17th District. Mr. Swans, go ahead.
Thank you. I have several very short amendments to be made in addition to those that have been made before. These came about as a result, if you remember, the consultant mentioned that later on in the process, the city's arts board weighed in and at several of our people's encouragement to take a look at this and address the potential of engaging cultural and artistic work in that part of the city. So these are boilerplate additions. They're just a couple of sentences long, and if you want me to...
Could you do it all in one amendment, Mr. Swan?
Yes, I would love to do that.
Thank you.
On page 13, there would just be the addition of Don Smith, City Arts Board. There must be a listing of people there, and he would be included in it. On page 30, under educational elements, we would add arts and cultural programming, contribute to the fabric and interweaving of a neighborhood. On page 42, we would add to the strategies, arts and cultural programming, that address diversity in the neighborhood and community. And on page 47, we would add City of La Crosse Arts Board as a responsible party to the action.
Is there a second? Okay, is there any discussion? Seeing nothing on, oops, here we go. District 7, Mr. Cerf, go ahead.
The only question I have for Mr. Swants is he named Don Smith specifically. Should that be, for cleanliness sake, be listed as the chair of the Arts Board?
Is there any objection to making that change from the council members? If
No.
not, I'll so order it.
Great.
Okay, we have the Swans amendment. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none on the Swanson amendment, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. And then to move as amended, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. So the recommendation for Thursday night is approval with the Swanson amendment and the previously amendment that came from J&A. Okay, next I have is item 13-0053. Yeah. 0053. Okay, it's the first one on the agenda. It's a second amended ordinance to amend subsection 15.02 parent B of the Code of Ordinances of the City of La Crosse, transferring certain property from the single-family residence district to local business district, allowing for remodel and expansion of tavern business at 2712 Main Street. And that was recommended to be adopted with that document. So, and I need a motion for a public hearing. Did I hear somebody over here wanting to speak? Okay. First speaker wishing to speak in favor of the legislation is Dan Dunn, 316 24th Street North, representing the Bluff site. And sir, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of Joan and Mike Gaisley, owners of the Bluff side, in favor of the legislation. The Bluff Side Tavern's been part of the community since the 1800s, and it's been a good neighbor. When it was annexed to the city of La Crosse, for some unknown reason, it was mistakenly zoned as residential property, when in fact it has been a local business since before there was a city. It's come the time where they need to remodel this property. In order to do that, we have to ask for it to be zoned as it should have been in the first place for the local business. The Planning Commission and the J&A Committee unanimously found that it was in the public interest to allow the rezoning. Mr. Maddie had recommended that in order to pass this ordinance, it is necessary to find it is in the public interest. There's a number of reasons why this is in fact in the public interest to allow the rezoning to take place. First of all, the rezoning will allow them to become compliant with the Americans with Disability Act. This is a public building used by the public, and if you allow the rezoning to go through so they can do the remodeling, then persons with disability have better access and they're able to use the premises, which becomes very difficult at this place. Along with this, the proposed remodeling will allow the Gaisleys to increase the parking and double the parking in the rear and add a rear entrance to the property. This is definitely in the public interest. Number one, it improves the parking situation in the area. It improves any congestion because there's now a place to park in the back. Even perhaps more importantly, what it does is that with an entrance in the back, it tends to take the noise when people are coming and going to the rear of the building, which is beneficial to the neighbors and the public. To the rear of the building, the noise is going towards the country club, it's going towards railroad tracks, it's taking it away from 28th Street. I think all of this strongly supports a finding that this is in the public interest and in favor of passing this legislation to allow them to do the remodeling that's sorely needed. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Dunn? And we have one from the council member of the 8th District, Bob Sequist.
Previously, last month, Dan, you said that the Gaisleys would cooperate in zoning this back to residential after the work is done. Is that still the case?
Well, what we've been told from the city attorney is that that's not legal. It's called contract zoning, so we can't.
Well, we can't, yes, that is true. We cannot have that as part of this, but you would cooperate should the council member of the area ask to have it rezoned as back to residential in 2 years.
I guess I'd ask these folks what your reaction would be to that.
Could you step up to the mic, please?
Yeah.
If I was asked to do that by the city, would I have any choice in the matter? I don't mean to be difficult, but I'm just saying if the city decided they wanted its own residential, I couldn't battle that myself, could I?
We have no attorney here tonight, but in the past, when we've had those where a property is rezoned or proposed to be rezoned against a property owner's objection, that requires the supermajority of 3/4 vote. Now that's what has happened in the past, and that's under a previous city attorney. So I guess that's the best answer I can give you tonight, unless Mr. Kirsch has a better answer.
The city attorney has, the city of La Crosse has zoning as a police power, so the city can initiate a rezoning. And again, I think as Mr. Becker indicated, it may take a 3/4 vote. So I think the city itself can be a petitioner.
Thank you.
I'm just saying that might help us, as the dilemma that we have is that presently we have a very fine operator of that establishment, but should you decide to retire and sell it to somebody who is less than scrupulous, then it would be what the neighbors really couldn't stand, you know, and that a rezoning, an eventual rezoning back to what it is now would keep the place pretty much in its present, in its remodeled state.
Well, and I understand where you're coming from there, but being in the tavern industry, we're probably the most heavily regulated and heavily watched business that you deal with in the city. And if, as you say, unscrupulous owner would come in after me, your police department or city complaints, I believe you all have a process on regulating licenses, on who gets them, and if they are to be withheld or don't have a license for 10 days. I think that you have all those in place. I appreciate you saying that I'm a good business person. I like to think I'm a good neighbor. We don't have police calls to the bar. I don't intend to have them. I just don't know if I would like at some point to, if somebody came in with a super duper business offer for me to buy my property and it was a super duper business and I said, well, I'm sorry, it can only be a tavern forever. My hands could be tied in that case also.
Mr. Sequest, is your question answered?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you for coming up and answering that question. Are there any other questions for Mr. Dunn? Mr. Dunn, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And I will move over to the other side. Wishing to speak in opposition is Scott Helwig, 125 South 28th Street. And you have 3 minutes.
10 years ago, my wife and I made a substantial investment based on zoning restrictions on this property in place then and when Mike Gaisley purchased the bar. We would not have made that investment knowing those restrictions would be lifted through spot rezoning. The city attorney has said that, quote, spot rezoning has been found valid when has been found invalid when it was in the public interest and not solely for the benefit of the owner. Additionally, that the valid rezoning must be for safety, welfare, and health of the community, unquote. The community implies to me that it's not just the owner's patrons. And this is backed up in the case of Bueller versus Racine County, where the court held that, quote, rezoning should be consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan and be based on consideration of the entire community. Arguments have been made that somehow you are in compliance with this criteria. I contend that handicap access, although wonderful, benefits only the bar's patrons, thus the owner, not the entire community. That doubling the area designated for seating will increase street parking congestion, especially since the designer, Jim Webb, has stated only 8 additional spaces are provided for an additional 40 seats and with no consideration for standing occupants. There's an argument that the main entrance is being moved and will benefit the neighborhood. If you look at the plans that you have, you will see that the existing entrances and bar area are intended to remain the same as they presently are. The new quote-unquote main entrance is shown in the far northwest corner, further from most of the parking than the existing entries. Most people will use the existing out of habit and convenience. Likewise, smokers will continue to use these exits. Thus, rather than eliminating outdoor noise from smoking and drinking at the east, you're adding a second disturbance source at the west. Most importantly, no matter how honorable everyone's intentions, there are a lot of loopholes here. This spot rezoning proposal doesn't even restrict development to the plan on the table. Once rezoned, there's nothing prohibiting plans from expanding further, or perhaps as a result of bids coming in high, illness, or for whatever reason, the project being abandoned and without notice, the building sold for whatever reason. A new owner, perhaps less desirable owner, can decide to double the size of this building or tear down the building and add something and construct something that's even worse for the neighborhood but compliant with the new zoning. The rezoning does nothing beneficial for the community or the neighborhood. It will decrease residential property values and discourage property investments.
Can you wrap it up, please?
I ask that you turn down this request and appreciate your time.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Helwig? Thank you for coming, sir. We have no questions. We can move in the rebuttal round. If the proponents have rebuttal, then we will have a rebuttal. If there's nothing from the proponents, then we close the public hearing. Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Dunn. 3 minutes.
I'll be less than that. I think he's misrepresenting the situation here. The parking, as you look, is going to be added directly in the back near where the new entrance is going to be. People are naturally going to come and go where the parking is. And it's a double of parking from what they have right now. In a local business zoning, it's restricted as the type of businesses that can be in the area. There are many businesses, the ones that don't fit into a neighborhood, that are not allowed under this type of zoning. Usually it's the tavern they don't want to come into the neighborhood. This is there already. You're not changing that situation. That's what people don't want in the neighborhood. If you look at the other types of business in a local business, not that that's ever going to happen, but I mean, it's not things that are objectionable to the neighborhood. As far as doubling the size, it's a small lot. There's not room for that. That's pure fantasy that anything like that's going to happen. This is, if nothing else, is going to improve the situation in the neighborhood, and I think you should adopt it, and it is beneficial to the public to have this place improved. It has been a good neighbor and always will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Is there anything from the opponents? Okay, 3 minutes.
The number of added parking spaces is direct from the initial planning committee where Jim Webb said there would be addition of only 8 units. Again, this isn't arguing whether or not we should have a bar there. Yes, the bar exists. It's arguing whether we should rezone a property from single family in a single family neighborhood to a building use or a business use so that any kind of business that qualifies can be built there. There are no restrictions saying that he has to stay within the parameters of this plan he's presented. He can enlarge it. Someone else could come along and purchase the property and enlarge it further. And there's adequate property to do that. There's adequate parking to do that. This facility is going to continue to congest the street. And I argue that still people that are used to coming in that front door, that's not changing. The existing front door is not moving. Anybody parking on the street or in those first 10 or 12 stalls are going to go to that door because it's simply more convenient for them. This issue of creating nuisance outside, which has occurred with smoking as a result of smoking and people carrying their beers out and such, is going to now continue on both sides of the building unless there's some very strict enforcement that I haven't seen happening in the last 10 years that I've been there. But I'm not opposed to the bar being there now. I bought it with the understanding that that bar is going to be there, but that it wouldn't be enlarged. And that's my primary issue, is that it won't be enlarged, and that I had assumed at the time that the zoning wouldn't be changed to allow for now a business zone within a residential area. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And he's already indicated that he's not inclined to consider allowing it to be rezoned back to residential, which was one of the original proposals put on the table and found not to be legally workable. Now his response to that concerns me even further, that he's considering selling this property at some point, and that he wants to be able to have it be zoned business. And I don't know who that next owner is, how reputable he is, or what his intentions will be, and that's a bigger concern again. Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you for coming. Before I close the public hearing, the people that did not wish to speak is Charles Weath, 122 South 17th. He didn't check a box, but he left a letter on all the council members' desk. Wishing to in favor of the legislation, but only here to answer questions, is Mike Geasley, 2627 King Street. And in favor of the legislation, but only here to answer questions, is Jim Webb, 1224 King Street, representing Bluffside. And I need a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. First speaker is the council member of the First District, Andrea Richmond.
Make that motion to approve.
With the attached document, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll recognize that. Do you wish to continue, Councilmember Richmond? Okay, next we'll go to the Councilmember of the 8th District, Bob Sequist.
I think all of you know this has been a very difficult one for me because we have a place that's been there almost 150 years, and we all have accepted it. It's a nice place to go hide out and have a pop, but and I think that the plan that they're proposing is a wonderful plan. I think it'll improve the place. What concerns me, and the reason I will vote against this rezoning, is because I think the city council, when it established the residential zoning there, had a plan. They looked around and they saw that it is the only business there. There used to be a trucking firm at the other end of the block on Cass Street, and that's gone. And I don't know how that interacted with the zoning at all, but now that's a pair of duplexes.